Okay, looks like we are live. Good morning, everybody. Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to our Facebook Live today. This is our third Facebook Live of the weekend. This weekend, we are celebrating Autism Awareness Month and trying to do our best as a charity. We are Our Village, and we're trying to promote resources that are free and helpful to our families during this challenging time. We also have our fundraiser going on, so please check that out as well with Mercury Wine Club and Kendra Scott, but I'll talk more about that later. But we're so excited to be here and share information with professionals. I'm so excited to have our special guest today. We have our fabulous board president, who is our wonderful leader, and our amazing expert clinician who really guides a lot of our evidence practices we do at Our Village. So I wanted to welcome Stefanie. Yay!
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course. So Stefanie, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I was thinking the first time I kind of stepped into this world of special education and psychology was back in 1998 when I was at UCLA, and I was what is now a behavior technician doing in-home ABA. And since then, I've been working, I've tried different settings, clinic settings. I'm a school psychologist by day, licensed educational psychologist, which allows me to do private practice. And that my school psychologist work has been, I think this is my 13th year. And then also I have my BCBA, I'm board certified behavior analyst for the last 6 years. So that's been my, it's been my career for the last, 20 years, 20 plus years, quite a while. So hopefully I can share some tips that are helpful today for our families at home.
That's amazing. And we're so happy to have your expertise today. And also, Steph, did you mention that you're also a parent?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Did you mention that you're also a parent?
Oh, yes, I am. You're going to see some live examples from my work, and then also what I'm trying to do at home. Super hard. I feel like even with all my training and my work, it's just so hard trying to implement that at home as a parent, because there's just so many other different factors and influences that you don't typically have at a work day or at a school day. So
nice. Yeah, I think that just helps a lot of parents out there feel like you understand. And I'm a parent too, and a clinician. We all have empathy for what we're all going through together right now. Awesome. Well, the topic for today is how to help your learner at home thrive during this difficult time in learning at home, staying at home. And I wanted to just kind of start us off with a quote to kind of get us mindful and in the right kind of frame of mind for this great information we're about to receive. And the quote that's been going around a lot that I really like is, we are all in the same storm, but we are all not in the same boat. And I think, that is so powerful because, all in the same storm for sure, as the challenges and social distancing and health and work. But each family has a unique circumstance, whether parents are working from home, whether grandma is staying at home, whether you have young kids, old kids, kids with special needs. So we have a lot of empathy for all kinds of different families, and we hope that you have some good takeaways from today's talk to help with different situations. So, yeah. Okay, so I have some little questions, and then I'm really going to let Stefanie do her thing. I'm just here to help moderate and help deliver this great info. So, Steph, what are some tips that you can share to motivate, prime, reinforce students that have transitioned to homeschool and are learning from computer screens now and probably even resisting it? So what do you think about that?
Actually, that kind of goes into some of the information I prepared, trying to boil down like what are the really important strategies to keep in mind and to use. Like if there's lots of busy parents, busy households, and like what does it boil down to? So maybe I can share it through that way. These strategies are they can apply to all ages or all learners, but you really have to adjust and accommodate based on your household, based on your child's needs, their developmental level. So there isn't one silver bullet. It is a combination of doing a couple things. So one of the things I think I kind of boil down to sort of three main strategies, and that's sort of before, during, and after. So before, the school day starts or schoolwork, you're gonna do a lot of preparation and priming. And during, what do you do during when there are challenging behaviors, or your child is refusing to work, or they're not finishing, or they're not attending? And then after, like, how do you keep those behaviors going, or how do you turn things around if you're caught up in this in an episode or a meltdown or whatever you want to call it? So I think some of the problems that might be pretty common would be maybe for some of our younger kids, they don't want to come to the work area to start work, or they're refusing to start work, or refusing to complete work. Maybe for our older kids or teens, those are a different set of developmental challenges, but still sort of the same issue. Or some of our kids might have a hard time, attending to the work, or sitting in front of a class Zoom meeting or video conference. Or they're often off task. And then the most common is the big challenging behaviors are tantrums or meltdowns, which can happen during any of these. So with the kind of first part, the preparation and organization, something I've shared with a lot of parents is, and I hopefully by now we're 6-7 weeks into this, school closure for some of us, or for many of the districts. But we're looking at establishing routines and schedules. This is really, really a big deal. And I think any parent, all parents have organizational skills, right? They've been forced to, the minute their child has been born, they're forced to coordinate, maintain, organize, and keep track of things, right? A lot of executive skills happening. But we know for our kids, especially with autism, and our young kids in general, establishing routines is really a big deal, and new schedules. And so I know with some school districts, some teachers are coming out with their schedules. So their schedules aren't necessarily confirmed yet, or they're changing. Like, there's just so many things that keep changing. So we just want to try to keep a routine as much as possible, but also expect disruptions to your routines at times. So, if you're working at home like I am, and I have a meeting that comes up, I have to kind of adjust to make sure my kids are keeping busy while I'm on my meeting, or things like that. And then being realistic about what you can do, or what you can fit in. So, some parents, I think, really feel the pressure to squeeze in all this schoolwork, or squeeze in all these video conferences with their teachers or service providers or speech paths. And sometimes it's just really hard because, like you said, Monica, every household is different. Everyone has different situation. So, I know one person is watching their sister's children because her sister is a first responder. She's an essential business worker. And so she also has to work and watch her, nephews and nieces. So be realistic about what you can do and fit in, but start, with baby steps. And then when it comes to, this is still part of the first piece of preparation, but priming and setting up for your child's expectations and work environment. So priming your child with expectations, at school, you've probably heard about visual schedules or priming. Priming is just basically a technique to get your child ready for something that's coming up. So whether it's a warning of it's almost time to come sit at the work table, or previewing something, maybe your child's teacher is doing a class lesson on some math concept, and this might be really hard for your child, and you can preview and prime that concept with your child so that she can participate more meaningfully during the Zoom session. So really with our kids, I think for most parents, we go to the verbal prime. It's the dinner in 5 minutes, saying it 10 times. And my thing is, if it's, if that's become your habit or routine, then you just switch to the visual, because that means your verbal strategy isn't as effective as it should be. So visually priming, we have visual schedules. I'll just show up a quick example. It can be super,
oh yeah,
super, very simple for some of our younger kids, to something that's more, complex for our older kids, or kids who can read and who can manage looking at all that text. You can prime also by teaching how to participate in a video schedule conference. So, for my own kids, I have to remind them, make sure your face is in the screen. I have to point to where the screen is so that the teacher knows you're there. Otherwise, they start calling on them, or, asking where they are. Things like that. So a lot of priming your child with expectations. There's modeling, that's you kind of telling your child what the answer is or how to do something. There's scripts, there's timers, there's social stories. So, that's it, that part in a nutshell. And then the other piece of preparation is setting up the work environment. Having things ready, and that's, constant. That could be a constant challenge. For me, there's 4, I have twins in the 1st grade. My husband's working from home, and they all have their Zooms. I have my Zoom, so we have to figure out constantly where we're going to be, where it's not as distracting. So consider the physical environment. What's distracting for your child? Even the type of
spaces. I didn't think about that. Like, shared spaces and shared Wi-Fi, shared tech. That's a good point.
Right. I mean, when we've been sitting on these Zoom conferences or video conferences, and everyone's on it. When we had our board meeting the other day, and then I think you had to get off of that video because your bandwidth was getting used up. So your connection was not very good. But even the physical environment. So, for my kids, I know I want them to pay attention. I can't have them sit on the rug because then they start lying down. We have this little beanbag thing that they fight over, and I have to just remove that so that there's that behavior doesn't occur, and I know they're more attentive if they're sitting up. And so those little things are just, I think you realize as they happen, and then you just make adjustments. For our kids who maybe have a hard time coming to the work table, looking for you have your materials ready, you're having maybe starting with a preferred task or something that they don't totally hate, to get them more likely to come to the table, get started. And then offering choices. That's something we are always talking about in the school setting, is offering choices for shared control. Our people want to have control over their lives, and that's one way to do it. So those are some kind of examples of setting up the work environment, the physical environment, priming your child with expectations. I think there's anything to add to that?
That's fantastic. I love that. And I even just think of my own kids where, it's like you try different things out. We tried setting up little play nooks and fun stuff, and it's really fun and playful, but they didn't get a lot of work done. So, so we kind of use that more as play, but my kids do the best still working at a desk. It just provides that structure or some kind of table. But we're trying to keep our routines the same, like you were saying, Steph, keeping those circadian rhythms set and maintaining getting the sunshine, waking up, getting dressed, brushing teeth, all those fabulous things. But I do let them kind of pick how they want to orchestrate their day. Does that sound okay to you? What they want to do first and next, as long as it kind of gets done?
I think it totally depends on the child, how much choice they can have. Certain things I have to reduce the amount of choices, because then it turns into they're pushing their limit, and then it turns into an argument. Okay. And so, but it depends. I think it's totally case by case. I think in some things, yes, they have you know, they have social studies assignments and they can choose from 5 different things. And so, and they just have to finish it by the date. So I make sure they choose whatever they want and then they cross it off. So there's some choice in that way. The one thing I did that's really important that I forgot to mention is about priming your child about what they learn. So reinforcement, yes. So this is the before part of reinforcement, but you know, for all of us, we need some kind of reinforcement. We, you know, at our jobs, we're reinforced by earning money. And so for our kids, especially if they're resistant, we really need to set something up. And it doesn't have to be, you know, anything that you've spent a lot of money on. For my kids, their reinforcement is they get to have free time. So, and I really hope you make it, because when they're on their free time, that's me doing some work or being on a video conference, right? So, but you know, you can, for some kids, it's what are you working for? And we know some of our kids have open boards. I forgot to check one out. But I'll show what I do for my kids. So they earn points, and they're able to sustain until the afternoon. Like they can hold on long enough, so they get like 5 points, and that's their ability to have free time. So
for staying on task and trying their best. Yeah.
Right. So I think I wrote do work, kind words.
Yeah.
And I put kind words because of all the arguing and the teasing that happened, and then follow instructions. And so just 3 real basic rules. And they've, you know, they kind of memorize it by now, but still it's good to reference it because this is a visual way to
yeah. What I love about that too is as a parent, you like hone in on, okay, we're not going to pick every battle, and we're not expecting our students to be perfect learners right now at all. Like you honed in on 3 goals, right, for your own kiddo, who are younger, by the way, right? Like what would be really impactful for them, and just a few so that they can self-manage. Like I remember my 1, 2, 3 that I have to do, right? Like trying your best, not arguing with your sib that you're around 24/7 now, like those kinds of things. And then you're showing them a visual. That's really nice. I like that.
And then for our like younger kids, or kids who can't have that many things to look at, or who have a harder time distinguishing between, we rely maybe on picture icons, then it's a first then board. It's first do, you know, I don't know, reading a book, and then it could be a picture icon, and then I get my break, which is whatever meaningful it is for that child.
So I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm going to once in a while, just like some questions, and I do want, this is Facebook Live, and you know, sharing info, but we do want this to be engaging and collaborative. So if you're tuning in, parents, professionals, if you have any question at all, we will try our best to give you our advice or tips on this. Dr. Knapp is in the house. Hi, Albert. He's our fabulous clinical director. Thanks for helping us today, Albert. And we have lots of friends watching. One of the questions that came up was the great visuals that you just showed. What age do you think that would be for? Like, what age range of kiddos would those visuals be helpful for?
So, like something like this?
Yeah.
So, I think, you know, this could be early elementary, late elementary. Middle school, I think they should then shift to, I mean, I think it depends on your child. If it's sort of like a typical cognition level middle schooler, I think then you're shifting to more of a self-management piece or style. But I think it depends on, you know, your family. Like if you have a giant whiteboard where everyone references everything, that could be a place to put that. And you know, so it depends. But I think for sure, early elementary, even preschool, depending on your child's like ability to read. Usually for the younger kids, you're getting more into pictures or happy pieces, like that.
Yeah, I love that. And I also think for older kids too, I think, collaborating on the goals together that you're priming is really important. Like the other day, I have kids as well, and Harrison said to me, Mom, I'm not trying hard enough. Like, he fully admitted to me all on his own. I'm like, wow, like, I really got to give it my all this week. Like, he knew he wasn't giving it his 100%. And I'm like, that's awesome, bud. And so that was his own goal, coming from his own motivation. I mean, so it could be anything, right? But I think that collaboration piece is important for buy-in. And it's meaningful to your own kids and students. And also, I think once you both are reliable on what those goals are that you prime, even if you don't use a visual, you can just walk over and like tap their shoulder and just acknowledge when you see them doing it, right? And just kind of give them a thumbs up. Because some kids don't like to be so like, they might interpret it as too much like critical or intrusive, right? Because you're shifting from hat to parent hat. And you just kind of walk by, give them a smile, a thumbs up, check in with them, a little nurturance, a cold drink. How are you doing? And you kind of check back out. That's kind of what I do. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, and when I give a point, I always pair it with, I'm describing what I see them doing, but I want them to do more of. So usually it's thank you for coming to the table with your work. And then I hope the other one follows.
Yeah, love it. Oh, by the way, Jessica, our board secretary, is in the house. Hi, Jess. Thanks for watching. We have an amazing team at our village. We're so grateful to have this dedicated group of professionals that volunteer their time. Okay, are you ready for the next one? Let's see. So we kind of talked about self-management, right? So do you think we should talk about maybe any tips for parents that are working from home and kind of like I kind of mentioned bouncing from teacher hat to parent hat and to professional hat? How do you balance all that?
That's a very difficult question right now. So with self-management, right? So for our little kids, Peg Dawson, who's the clinical psychologist. She does a lot of work in executive skills. You can maybe post some of her resources up there, but she talks a lot about executive skills. And for our little kids, executive skills is where all the skills you need to complete a task, do a project, planning and organizing. And that, I think there's research that shows that doesn't mature until like age 25. There's that whole thing of with car rental companies, you have to be age 25 because there's like a lot of accidents that happen. I don't know, simple issues, right? So our younger kids are learning and developing these skills. And Peg Dawson was talking about how she made a good point, how teachers are the ones that provide the structure to do all the monitoring, planning, organizing. And now we have to do that for our kids, right? We have to structure their day and tell them when to start and stop something and how to shift tasks. So for younger kids, it's about teaching, like just getting that foundation of teaching them the idea of checking, how to manage yourself. So that could be anything like, making a little checklist. So for my kids, they have their school assignments. And if they ask me, well, what am I supposed to do next? I tell them, go check your list, right? Point to their list. So that I'm not telling them the answer. Another piece of self-management is kind of identifying emotions, right? Identifying your own behavior, your own reactions. How do you control and manage that, right? So there's that sort of self-management of my school day, but then there's self-management of my own body and my own behaviors because of how I'm feeling. So there's there's all these different ways to look at self-management. So for that, for some of my younger kids, we're talking about identifying emotions or knowing what's appropriate, like it's okay to go say I need a break, but it's not okay to scream and shout. And that's just, teaching very black and white, what's okay and what's not okay. For our older kids, it's the same idea, I think, as the work gets harder, the parents, aren't able to do chemistry with them. And so it is the self-management piece of figuring out how to, where do you go for help? Do you need to stay organized? If so, usually checklists, visuals and having checklists, especially for our kids with ASD, having that sense of completion of doing, finishing a task. That's a big support for learning that skill. The other piece of this is and I think it's so hard for all of us to remember as parents, is if you want to strengthen the skill, you have to remember to acknowledge it and reinforce it. And remembering to say, great job, you managed that on yourself, or you did, your first part of the project, how did you do that? That requires debriefing, and that requires time. So I think we have to set personal goals of like kind of like Harrison, like, what do I want accomplished? My goal sometimes is like get through the school day without like raising my voice at anyone. That's been my goal lately.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think, I think like there's self-management is so key right now, like you said, and we're really helping our kids kind of be that like, higher brain right now, right? Like for the executive functioning, but like a container for that and any worry or anxiety they have, and like just to let them not have to hold it. And I think, orchestrating and moving in a family system, I think there's also almost like a co-management that occurs where, you can't just, be loud and disrupt your sibling who's trying to work, right? So I really always acknowledge too when like my kids will, be quiet or go entertain themselves while the other one's working, and then they can play together. Or like when they will be nurturing and show empathy and get like their other brother or sister like a snack or a drink or do something to help, and like let's go help him pull this close, so because he has a lot of work today and you don't, and just kind of building that empathy for each other. Or like dad has a lot to do right now, let's go do this. And then dad, doesn't have to worry about that. So kind of like, because we're all in the same system in one house. And I think that really helps build perspective taking and empathy too.
Right.
Well, do you have some thoughts too, Stefanie, about challenging behaviors or, any tips for parents? Not that happens, right? Like, all our kids are, not doing that at all. But, any tips for challenging behaviors at home or shutdown behaviors? Especially, I hear a lot from parents about perhaps they're not that used to doing schoolwork or even homework in a home setting, which I think is really interesting. Now it's like almost like a really big stimulus change, isn't it? That now they have to produce. Maybe they're used to producing at school a certain type of work.
Right. Well, we know learning history, right? The reason why kids act a certain way with parents is because they have a long history of getting things they want by acting a certain way, right? Which is just how it is in a family. You can't control for everything. So with challenging behavior, so a lot of the work comes in the prep, right? And then so a lot of the priming and motivation. So, when I was kind of putting this down, it was, what we have to consider if it's like a can't do or a won't do. Is it a skill? Is this something that's too hard for my child, or just a little bit hard? If it's sort of a can't do, then we can try modeling, we can prompt, we can find a way to make it a little easier in the moment, right? And then we feel there for it. So if it's a won't do, which I think is a lot more common, like, they can do it, they can do part of it, but they're refusing, right? So, for example, calling their name and they're not turning around, and that other times they've responded to you, then that's more of a won't do, and that's where you key into like motivation, your motivation. All the research shows that positive reinforcement is the most consistent and the strongest way to change behavior, right?
Definitely.
But it's that in schools that works for like the majority of the kids, right? Like 85%. And then you have a small percentage where you have to now add in other strategies. What in the behavioral world is called punishment, but what that means is taking away things, right? So in terms of like what's a challenging behavior, you're going to do all your prep work right ahead of time. You're going to prime them. You're going to show them what they're going to talk about, what they want to earn, so that hopefully that'll prevent that challenging behavior. But your kids are used to acting a certain way with you, and so you're going to inevitably hit like an extinction burst, right? You're gonna, like, when you change your strategies, they're gonna be like, wait a second, this screaming and crying and endless whining used to work very quickly. I'm gonna keep going because that's what I know what works. But as long as we stay consistent, eventually that will stop over time. So we just have to like mentally prepare for that. The one thing though is redirecting early back to task. So early meaning like when you sense that first kind of initial resistance or that first whine or whatever it is, you know, you can show them, hey, remember, how many more points do you have left? Or, you know, something's really fun that you plan for reinforcement. Maybe they get to do blanket board, you know, kind of redirecting in that way. Something I have done, and I think it's realistic in a lot of households, is sometimes we do have to have the punishment procedure. So I have a little, my kids' reinforcement is screen time, and that's highly preferred. They only get it at the end of their school day when they've done their work. And so they get points. I give them a warning, and then they get points. And I call them minus points. You know, sometimes we call them strikes, whatever you want to call them. When they hit, for my kids, it's when they hit 5 points. That's like 10 minutes off the screen time or something. And that is curb low-level behavior. It's not meant to go on and on and on. So if you find you're getting into a power struggle, then that strategy is not working. If you're like taking away lots of things and you keep, getting into this power struggle, then
really good point. So you only know if that's really working if it curbs it early on. If it just continues, then you need a different strategy. Yeah.
Right. In that moment, now you're going to like crisis mode, right? Now it's about like safety. Go to your room where you won't disrupt everyone. Wait till they wait it out, and really
next stuff. Yeah.
And it should really be a small percent of your discipline, right? Your interaction. Most of it should be positive stuff. So that's the only caveat, is to be really careful not to get caught up in punishment only, because then you have to turn things around, right? There's hurt feelings. You're still stressed out and annoyed. You have to turn things around with this. And with our kids, they're more likely to shake it off and keep going.
That's a really good point. I think as parents, we take it more personally, and the kids, they're more used to like those structures that are implemented in the school day, and they can handle and be with some feedback, the physical feedback, right? Like, oh, you're a little off task, or that wasn't appropriate. So you're basically giving them a visual feedback or like a little bit of a response cost. By the way, we have our awesome colleagues from Whitesburn in the house watching. Shayna Savitz is here. Hi, Shayna. And we have some other friends watching. I think Crystal might be watching. So,
good.
For your support. I just wanted to mention too that, as a parent, I know for myself, I have to really be mindful not to kind of start doing like barking orders all day, because there's so much to comment on, so much to manage. And then you're always, all your interactions with the kids start to become direction. And really that's my thing that I have to hold and just pick what I want to put into their universe at that moment, right? And not overwhelm them with, the laundry to be done. And then you have to walk your dog, and don't forget trombone and all this stuff. And you have a Zoom at 2:00. And I feel almost like their office manager at times.
That self-management checklist will come in handy for them, right?
Yeah, and then I think like whenever we're giving directions, like you were saying to the kids, it's just so key and important for parents to connect first and then give the direction. And it's so easy to kind of do a less effort behavior for me from across the room. I'm doing the dishes and I'll yell something to the kids, but that's really setting myself up for failure and the kids, right? So I really need to connect first, take the time, join their world a little bit, and then really remind them of like what I need them to do. And then there's so much more prone to say, yes, sure, I'll do that, right? Versus tuning me out for like 5 or 6 times, I really set myself up for that. So I like really connecting, entering the world, and then connecting and redirecting really helps. So great stuff. This information is so helpful. Thank you. Let's see. I have another question here. This is kind of like a question for like, like goals in the home, right? So what do you think, especially working in the school setting, what are some expectations that most teachers do you think have at this time? What's really not even homeschooling. I kind of think of it more as like crisis schooling, right? Because the best homeschool parents out there will tell you this is not traditional homeschool time. We're all in a collective crisis, maybe a collective trauma mode, and we're all trying our best to keep our kids on maintenance and no regression. Acquisition's really hard at this time. You know, traditional school, you have field trips and enrichment and connection, and we don't have that, right? So what do you think that teachers would kind of recommend at this time to help kids with maintenance, and should we even be working on new skills?
So, you know, that will ultimately it'll depend on your district and your teachers, right? Because there are teachers that are taking distance learning in different ways. I know for us, when we first started, we thought this was a temporary thing. We thought we'd be back in school after 3 weeks. And so at that point, the goal and the direction was about maintenance and just kind of not introducing any new material, because we thought we'd be back in school to do that. But now that's changed. And so I think there is, you know, there's lots and lots of conversations and meetings happening on what to do. And so I know also though that usually, you know, the teachers, the principals are aware that everyone's situation is different. You know, there before it was about, you know, triaging, like who doesn't have access to technology, who needs a Chromebook or who needs a computer, that kind of thing. So I think for expectations, I think teachers are aware that that not every family is going to come at this the same way. And so I think and that it can be very stressful for a lot of families. So I don't think there's an expectation for all families to do everything that's put out there. I think right now teachers and schools are putting out work or providing resources and and learning plans so that students can engage in that. But in terms of what the teachers expect, I think it's so different across families. You get the families who are who feel overwhelmed and say this is too much, and then you get the families who say I need more. What's happening? So I think I hope that answers part of it. I think in the end you communicate with your teacher because that'll get you the most immediate direct response. And I know even between schools there's differences between how one teacher is doing distance learning and how another teacher is doing distance learning at the same school. Yes. That's a whole other thing.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think that's fantastic. I just think it's so reassuring for parents to know. And I reached out to a lot of my favorite special ed teachers out there, and really they all said, keep reading, like review maintenance goals, make sure that you can generalize goals from last year's IEP into the home. How many times we've been in an IEP meeting and, we felt like, oh, my child can't do that in the home. They haven't shown me that, right? But the providers at school have done a nice job mastering it. So this is a great opportunity, I think, to show generalization of those maintenance skills in the home. And if the skill is mastered, you're probably going to get assistance about it anyway, right? Because like a novel acquisition skill might be harder. So harder to learn and harder to teach. And also the teachers just keep saying, like, just play, just have lots of play time, family time, lots of breaks and movement, and just try your best to keep that structure going for the kids. I think that's really beautiful.
I think trying your best and then the structure, because the other thing is we don't want our kids to lose that ability to follow directions at a table. To do something, right? That's what school is, that's what the behaviors we have to have ready for school. But also I think parents like having that structure because then their kids get into the routine and you can, I think the other thing to work on is independence, like having your kids learn how to sit and do something for a few minutes by themselves, whatever it is, sorting laundry or, playing with toys.
Yeah, I love that. That's so true. It's so great. Well, do you have any other like last thoughts for us, Steph? This was so helpful and informative. I've been like taking notes. This is great.
So, I mean, the only thing, well, one thing I want to mention about reinforcement is like if you're going to be realistic, right? So if your child has a hard time sitting for 5 minutes and their reinforcement is, 6 hours later, you can have an ice cream for doing your work, and yet, your child can't meet that. Like they're never going to earn it, right? So be realistic about what your child can do. But with reinforcement, if you're going to offer screen time, make sure you restrict it. Don't give it to them in the morning, even though maybe it is easier. Like you have to find ways to work that into make it motivating. Otherwise, for me, at work, at school, that's what it comes down to when it gets to getting our kids to turn things around and to start listening or to do things we want them to do is the reinforcement to motivate them. We're not, physically prompting them. We're not carrying them. I mean, we are physically prompting, but really we're not like carrying kids, right? We're not doing things that maybe could happen in the home. We have to rely on reinforcement. So I think as long as you kind of keep that up, I tell my parents who are really busy, like just priming, the visual schedule, and reinforcement. Those are the 3 things like to really focus on. And really staying calm. I think that's the hardest thing for people in general and for when it comes to your own kids. And then, when you're managing, if you're working, you're going to manage all the things you have to do for work, or you have a meeting coming up that you have to hop onto. Managing that stress, that self-care is really, really, really important. Whether that's doing a video chat with a friend or, Netflix binging, I think that piece. Really, we have to, take care of ourselves. So we're ready for a kid.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's so important for all the parents out there right now. All the parents out there, you guys are all doing a great job. This is not easy. All the teachers are doing a great job. I mean, everyone's working really hard to do our best during this challenging time. And I know that we're going to get through it, Like you said, I think we should stay calm and have structure and play. I like to do for our reinforcements in my house, like the choice. I know we're going to plug in and orchestrate family play all the time. So I give my kids the choice. It's like, maybe they're going to pick D&D. Do I want to do D&D all night? Probably not. But, it's like they get to put that choice in the hat and they get really excited about that, Or we're doing baking. It's like a hot day. Do I want to bake? I'm like, well, they earned it, so we're baking, It's like, that really helps too.
Yeah. So I agree.
Yeah. Well, do we have any questions from everyone watching? Just wait a sec to see. This is your time to ask Stefanie if you have any questions at all. As a parent or teacher, we really want to help with our students at home during this time so that they can thrive as productive learners. So I'm trying to wait for any questions or comments to come in. Just a quick reminder, this is our fundraising weekend as well for our village. So you still have time to support us. We definitely need your help. We have our physical doors closed and we're really trying hard to transition to the virtual programs and offer support to families in different ways to reach out to our community in need. You can support us by 2 different ways. You can shop at Kendra Scott all weekend online. Scott, I'm wearing their earrings today to show everyone. They have lovely items. You can do some restocking on your jewelry, and they'll donate back 20% to our village. You can shop at kendrascott.com, and the promo code is GiveBack7070. And also this weekend at Kendra Scott, I've heard this stuff. They are giving away a free necklace for Mother's Day if you spend $100. Yeah, it's beautiful too. It's one of those lovely interlocking necklaces that's designed for like mother and child. So you get to shop for good and you get something to give to a loved one or for yourself as a mom. It's really beautiful. So that's Kendra Scott. You can also stock up on your wine and champagne. You can buy from Mercury Wine Club, who is one of our favorite sponsors as well. And their promo code is OV2020. All the instructions are on the Facebook page for both of these great partners. And they will also donate 20% back to our village. And their promotions go through the end of April. And both Kendra Scott and Mercury Wine Club ship nationwide. So you can order for yourself or for loved ones. Let's see. I don't see any last questions or comments. I think we covered everything pretty thoroughly today. You know, I feel pretty confident the information was clear and really informative. What do you think? Does it sound good?
Yeah, I talk a lot, so.
I know. I feel like I'm just having coffee with you and collaborating together as a clinician and a parent. This was amazing. Thank you for your time. And, you know, just to end again with that quote that I love, just to remind everybody, you know, we are all in the same storm, but we are all not in the same boat. So just have empathy and compassion for what your kids are going through for right now. This is time for them and for their childhood. You know, I just think about that, you know, all the quarantine that's been happening, and this is just such an interesting time for their generation. And I think compassion will take you a long way, and no matter what you do. So tune in also this afternoon. Our last Facebook Live is at 4 p.m. And this is with our other board member, Banaza Frankie, who's a fabulous occupational therapist. And she's going to share some amazing tips, Steph, on self-regulation and how families can regulate in the home. Yeah. Yeah, I'm so excited to hear that. So that'll be our last one. And please comment and like us all day on Facebook, because we are doing our last raffle of giveaways at 4 p.m. today. So after Banaz's talk, then I could end the weekend with some fun giveaways. So just to share the love back to everyone. So, okay, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in, and take care and stay safe.
All right.
Thank you, Stefanie. Bye.
Bye.